and welcome to Your World Tonight. I'm Aisha Sindhu. India's new army chief talks tough on terror and the battle for ownership of the Samajwadi Party cycle symbol rages on. That's on the agenda for the newscast today. First up though, the headlines. India's new army chief General Bipin Rawat doesn't rule out more surgical strikes across the line of control if the situation so warrants. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's pictures replace those of Mahatma Gandhi on the Khadi industry's 2017 calendar. Employees and the opposition cry foul. Who will get to hitch a ride on the Samajwadi Party's bicycle? The question continues to loom large as the EC holds on to its decision on whether it goes to Mulayam Singh or his son Akhilesh. Kudalur and other places in Tamil Nadu host Jallikat events. The DMK demands an ordinance a day after India's Supreme Court refuses to lift a ban on the bull taming sport. And Captain Cool MS Dhoni lays on the praise for Virat Kohli, says India's fortunes will soar in all formats under the new skipper. India's newly appointed Army Chief General Bipin Rawat today sent out a stern message to Pakistan saying India will carry out surgical strikes across the border again if such a need arises. Here's more on the story.
We are offering this offer of peace to the adversary to say that if you reciprocate in the same manner and accept peace and tranquility on the border, we will go along. And that the necessity for conduct of surgical strikes in the future should not arise. But if that offer of peace and tranquility is not reciprocated in an appropriate manner or in the manner in which we are offering that offer, then this method of execution of operations will continue.
A strong message from India's Army Chief. General Bipin Rawat, however, making it clear that India's aim is to ensure peace and tranquility and that it was trying to ensure that there shouldn't be a requirement for conducting such strikes. India, remember, had destroyed several launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in September 2016 in simultaneous surgical strikes in a bid to preempt infiltration by terrorists. The general said that the force wants its personnel to come directly to the authorities and not through social media. He added that Army has an excellent grievances redressal mechanism to deal with such cases.
We will have a Chief of Army Staff suggestion cum grievances box placed at various places. Anyone, irrespective of rank, service, can use these mechanisms for putting in whatever they wish to write into these letter boxes so that the grievances reach directly to me, and through me these can be addressed.
General Rawat also assured full confidentiality to those raising grievances through the suggestion cum grievances boxes that will be set up across formations. Bureau Report, WION.
Deputy editor of the Huffington Post and senior journalist Sudhi Ranjan Sen joins us on to break down that presser right now. Sudhi, what was your impression of the new Army Chief's first press brief?
Well, I mean, this is a media interaction, official media interaction that we have seen. The impression that we are getting is number one, there is no mincing of words, because the chief was very, very clear that the response of India depends on how Pakistan reciprocates to India's gesture, and that is of peace and tranquility along the border. Very clearly, the chief mentioned that the possibility of another surgical strike or simultaneous surgical strikes that we had seen earlier last year in September 29 cannot be ruled out. And that is a very, very strong message coming from the street. Second, on the issue of grievance redressal, I've seen several chiefs but being upfront and frank and saying, yes, there are problems, and I would rather have my men talking to me directly than talking to me through the social media is not acceptable. So in a way, the chief has reached out to 1.3 million strong army. That's a huge, huge army. He's very, very clear that there are problems, and it is better that you write to me directly, and I shall take care of that. And as an assurance, he has said that the names of people who are putting in these complaints or suggestions, whichever way you want to take it, will be kept a secret. He says that you must have, assurance of the fact that you must need to trust your senior leadership.
Right.
So it's a very strong message, both for the internal health of the army and also for the external adversaries.
Right, so forthcoming first press conference there, but when we've seen usually when it comes to tough speak about the LOC at press briefings, it's usually done by the Pakistani chiefs. Do you see that General Rawat's comments as a tit for tat in that case, and do you think this is going to be a trend going forward under his command as well?
No, I mean, I wouldn't put it that way, because this government has made it very clear. They have introduced an element of uncertainty in its Pakistan policy. If you look back and see the UPA years, when you saw the 26/11 terror strike or the seven bombings, the train bombings in Bombay, where we lost more number of men than 26/11, more casualties than 26/11. Although we severed diplomatic ties, although we spoke, we had a very harsh tone with Pakistan, but we wound up ultimately trying to talk to Pakistan and saying that dialogue is the only way. Now, the difference in this government is, while the government says dialogue is what we want, they are not shy of using the force. So in a way, the army or the military that way has been empowered also to go out and carry that strong message that if you do not respect us, then we shall go after you. That is what basically it is in line with the government, what the government's policy has been.
Right. Let's move away from the talk on terror and, of course, being stronger in terms of going ahead with surgical strikes. But when it comes to General Praveen Bakshi, were there any mentions made about him or his tenure with the army?
Well, yes. I mean, it was an absolute free and frank admission that we saw from the chief, that the decision to elevate him to the position of chief from that of vice chief, overlooking two senior other generals, as the Eastern Army Commander, General Bakshi, and the Southern Army Commander, General Harris, it's a government decision. That's what the chief's answer has been, and rightly so. It is indeed a government's decision. It's a government's prerogative. Having said that, what the chief was very clear that I have reached out to General Praveen Bakshi, and General Praveen Bakshi has also reached out to me, and therefore the chief says and thinks, that is the impression that was given, that he expects everybody to work together. There should not be fissures, because the statements that we have seen from the Eastern Command has given rise to apprehension, that the fissures have not been quite addressed, and they may fester a little bit.
All right, Sudhir Ranjan Sen there in New Delhi. Thanks so much for joining us here on WION with the details on that story. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to another one of the big stories making the rounds in India. In Tamil Nadu, the government is on the horns of a dilemma ahead of the festival of Pongal. Should they enforce a ban on the bull taming sport of Jallikat, or should they bow to political pressure and seek out the centre to bring in an ordinance? Here's a report.
The bulls were back on Friday at the epicenter of Jallikattu in southern Tamil Nadu. A defiant show by supporters of the bull taming festival in this village in Madurai, a day after India's apex court rejected a plea to allow the centuries-old sport. The organizers are now making arrangements for another form of bull taming sport called Manju Virattu, despite the objections by the authorities. Elsewhere in the state, politics over the issue is heating up. The DMK is demanding that the centre bring out an ordinance.
When Honorable Karunanidhi was the Chief Minister, even then there were issues raised for Jallikattu. There was a ban even then. The Supreme Court refused to allow the event. But the way our leader handled the issue, the Supreme Court came up with certain measures and allowed Jallikattu. And so, in our days in power, we had always ensured that Jallikattu happened every year.
The DMK targeted both the AIA-DMK government in the state as well as Prime Minister Narendra Modi as it staged protests against the Supreme Court order. Animal rights activists are, however, outraged and demanding strict enforcement of the ban. They say any such ordinance would be an unconstitutional misuse of power.
Mahatma Gandhi said that the moral progress of any country is known by the way its animals are treated. So we need to follow the footsteps of Mahatma Gandhi, not follow a culture blindly which tortures, kills, injures an animal and also humans.
Animal rights activists have written to the president asking him to block any move to allow Jallikattu this Pongal. After the Supreme Court, it may now soon be the president who may have to take a call on resolving this culture versus cruelty dilemma. Manoj Kevalramani, WION.
We are joined by our correspondent Nishtita Virendra live from Madurai on that story. Nishtita, what are the locals saying? Are they going to abide by the Supreme Court order or not?
Well, it seems like the locals are adamant on wanting to participate in the Jallikattu festivities, but on the other hand, there is heavy police presence on the streets of Madurai. Now, we should understand that Madurai is the center of all activity when it comes to Jallikattu festivities, but almost 500 to 600 police are currently present in the location of Avanyapuram, where I am right now, and each of almost 500 bulls that were expected to participate in the Jallikattu festival have police presence around it. Only 5 policemen are guarding each of these bulls. One such bull is standing right behind me, and we understand that these locals want to go ahead with the festivities, and if they are not allowed to do so, they will be protesting tomorrow in Avanyapuram, which will be the first leg of the Jallikattu festivities as part of Pongal tradition. There will be nearly 500 people gathering to protest against the Supreme Court for not lifting the ban and the centre for not passing the ordinance, Aisha.
Right. In fact, I don't know if we are certain of exactly what is being said by those locals, Nishtita. If you've been able to have a conversation with any in terms of what animal rights activists say, they say that
Right.
bulls are being ill-treated for the sport. Have you been able to, speak with anyone about those claims?
Right. I did interact with several locals who are enraged with the ban not being lifted on Jallikattu. I have one such local right here with me. I have Varadarajan, who is a local from Avanyapuram. So Varadarajan, tell us, what does Jallikattu really mean for the people here?
No, Jallikattu is, we are just following, this is a traditional event. We are following for past 400, 500 years ago. And our grandfather, forefather, all our taught us what is exactly what we have to do. And this is our tradition, cultural, Tamil cultural. And
So, but animal rights activists are saying that you are torturing these bulls. So how exactly are these bulls bred?
No, never. We never torture or harm these bulls. These bulls are more than as a child for us. So all these people are not a businessman or like, they are a daily wages people and they are earning 300, 400, but they are spending more to this bull. All they just want to safeguard this cultural event for us long as we are alive. That's what.
Okay. And tomorrow now we saw police presence on the streets of Avanyapuram. So if tomorrow Jallikattu...
Till now we didn't have any order to go for Jallikattu. So definitely we will protest the government and the Supreme Court people. So people will organize and they will do a protest here around 9 a.m. tomorrow. So that will actually happen here.
Okay. So we understand that the Supreme Court has not lifted the ban. Your state government, now the police have also imposed Section 144. Yes. You told me that there is heavy police presence around every house where the bull is participating. Yes. So what are the people who have tamed these bulls over the years saying?
Actually, nearly 400 to 500 policemen are placed in here in Avanyapuram, and especially 5 policemen for each bull. They have home arrested all these bulls and their owners, so that they can't able to participate in tomorrow protest. And all the thing they want to, people should be inside their home. So almost it's like 144 has been ordered here.
Well, thank you, Varadarajan. Well, we also understand that the locals here are not just in Avanipuram, but even in other locations of Madurai are planning to come out in huge numbers and protest against the government for not being able to let the Jallikattu tradition be conducted today, tomorrow and the day after, Aisha.
Right, Nishtita, thanks so much for bringing us those details from the ground and, of course, getting that young local involved as well. It does give another perspective entirely to this battle between savagery and sport. We're going to move on now to our next story. India's Prime Minister has caught himself in a bit of a snafu. This after his pictures replaced those of the iconic Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi on the calendar of the khadi industry. Now, the move has evoked protests from employees of the government body itself. Khadi, or Indian hand-woven cloth, has been synonymous with Mahatma Gandhi since before independence. But this year's calendar of the Khadi Village Industries Commission features Prime Minister Modi in the classic pose associated with the father of the Indian nation. The opposition has criticized the move, asking if Modi was the new face of the khadi industry. The government, meanwhile, has played down the controversy. It says that there have been several instances in the past when the khadi industry did not publish Gandhi's image on its calendar or diary. We're joined by our chief domestic correspondent, Kartikeya Sharma, for more on that story. Kartikeya, what exactly is the government's defense on this Modi-Mahatma controversy?
See, the government is the view that the KVIC as an entity, and they have actually given out a release. And you know, Aisha, the most important part is that the release is in Hindi, and the press has been asked to attribute it to the sources. And it says that, you know, this is an unnecessary controversy. And they also go on to say that in 2002, 5, 11, 12, 13, 16, 1996, there was no photograph of Mahatma Gandhi on the cover of the calendar of the diaries. Secondly, it also goes on to argue that the sales, which were stagnating between 2 to 7%, has shot up to 34% under the edges of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But I would say that this is only the, I think, the little part of the whole debate. The actuality here is that khadi symbolically has been part and parcel of the larger persona of Bapu, and the way Bapu made khadi in the spinning of the wheel intrinsic to the freedom struggle, a non-violent symbol, a symbol of self-sustenance and symbol of local self-sustainable economy.
Right.
Now, what is happening is that even if I say that, well, yes, these are the years on which the Modi was not there, BJP has usurped that brand, that symbol and that idea for itself, and that is being debated.
Right, Kartikeya, when it comes to the Mahatma, though, it's not just that he's looked upon as the father of the Indian nation, but also he is a global icon. What are the implications of Modi replacing him on the calendar in that scenario?
I think it ultimately depends on the fact that what the Prime Minister thinks right or not. When the whole suit boot jibe took place, he gave away that coat. It was auctioned for 1 crore rupee, which some fan of the Prime Minister purchased. Now, in this case, either the Prime Minister can ask KVIC not to distribute these calendars, or he can just stay silent and BJP can continue to defend. But that also goes on to show, for me, this is just one part of the story, Aisha. The larger part is that the government has made it show this time that certain icons will change. Certain icons will get their space. Certain icons will be sidelined. And certain icons will not be touched. Unlike Vajpayee, which was accommodative of the larger pantheon of the Congress icons, this regime will not be. So this is a power shift, not only in the power arena, this is a power shift even in the cultural and educational sphere.
Right. Kartikeya, is the fact that the industry's employees themselves are protesting Modi's picture being used as on those calendars and diaries, is that going to be used as fodder by the opposition in their attack now?
Well, opposition will continue to attack the Bharatiya Janata Party. See, Congress has a history, and the history is joined with the freedom struggle, so obviously the icons will be larger. RSS and BJP, they were always of the view that despite their own contribution, they don't have their icons in place. So this time around, if you see, the changes have been made whereby their icons have been incorporated into the larger narrative. You have now documentaries running on Lok Sabha TV, on Hedgewar, on leaders who were essential to the formation of Jan Sangh on RSS, which was not the case when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister.
Sure.
So as a journalist, I would say that this is a shift even in the cultural sphere.
Right, Kartikeya Sharma, thanks for breaking down that story for us. We appreciate you joining us with those details. We're going to move on. The Election Commission of India has reserved its order on the election symbol of the Samajwadi Party. After a 5-hour hearing where both sides presented their cases, the Election Commission remained undecided on the matter. The EC will give its verdict in due time. Both Akhilesh and Shivpal camps are claiming the party's symbol the cycle for the upcoming elections. However, Mulayam Singh has said that he remains the party chief and also wants the party to stay united. Akhilesh, his son, on the other hand, has said that if he gets the ownership of the party symbol, he might go in for an alliance with the Congress.
जो साइकिल का सिंबल है वो उनको मिलना चाहिए. That is समाजवादी पार्टी led by अखिलेश यादव. और दूसरी तरफ से मुलायम सिंह जी के वकील ने अपना पक्ष रखा कि ये सिंबल उनको मिलना चाहिए. लगभग 5-5.5 घंटा बहस हुई और बहस के खत्म होने के बाद चुनाव आयोग ने कहा है कि हम जल्द से जल्द फैसला करेंगे.
Senior correspondent Raghavendra Rao joins us for more on that story. Raghavendra, looking at the situation as it stands right now, what are the options that the Election Commission has as far as that symbol goes?
Aisha, it was a day of a marathon meeting at the Nirvachan Sadan in Election Commission, and both the parties have presented their case before the Election Commission, and both the factions have staked their claims for the party symbol as well as for the party name. Now the ball is in the Election Commission's court. It has basically, it has to establish, it has to ascertain whether either of the faction deserves to be recognized as the original Samajwadi Party and whether it should be granted the bicycle symbol which both sides are fighting for. The options are clear. I mean, if either of the sides is able to establish its case, is able to prove that it is the original Samajwadi Party, the Election Commission will allot the bicycle symbol to that faction. In case both the parties are not able to establish that, or there are disputes which cannot be sorted out as of now, the option before the Election Commission of India is to freeze the bicycle symbol, and in that case the Election Commission will offer fresh set of symbols to both the factions and will ask them to choose from those symbols, and both the factions will have to then probably have new names for their respective factions. They'll have to choose a new symbol for their respective factions, and then they'll go into the elections with those symbols and new names.
Right, Raghavendra Rao, thanks for joining us with details on that story. Over to some cricket news now. Mahendra Singh Dhoni addressed the media for the first time after giving up his captaincy. Dhoni said that the split captaincy system doesn't work and that it's time to move on.
If it's the numbers, I think Virat and his team will win more games than me in all the formats. I firmly believe this will be the team, that will, rewrite history, if you want to say it. Or I think, they'll do something very special, in the coming years. I told BCCI officially that I won't be captaining anymore. I'm somebody who believes in our scenario, split captaincy is something that doesn't really work. Virat took over the test captainship and I wanted him to have some time over there and then, get into the full captainship role. So he was always ready, limited or over format is not a big challenge.
All right, with that, it's a wrap on Your World Tonight. Thanks for joining us here on the program. News and updates continue on the other side of this short break. Join us then.